and he actually sees one of these creatures. The one thing about the story is this guy sounds like Woody after our encounter. And I thought Woody was just insane, but this guy... yeah. No, I mean, this guy's attitude on the whole thing. Take a listen to this. Tell me what you guys think of this.
My first thought was, there's an old, naked, hairy, gray, silverish-looking old man in these woods, but really hairy. And as I took a second look, I knew what I was looking at. That's my two-clock position, maybe 40, 50 yards away. I heard a stick break or snap. I wasn't sure if something snapped a twig or stepped on it or whatever. I looked over and there was nothing there. I looked back and I said, let me go back here and find my safety belt again and bring it around and snap it, because that might be a deer coming up through that tree line there. So I'm trying to get my safety belt. I couldn't get it right, and all of a sudden I heard something else. So I looked up again, and there that thing was standing there. That's when I knew whatever I was looking at was weird, because you can see the muscle flexion. You can see the skin underneath the hair. There's no way I could have been hoaxed or fake. I know what that thing was real. And that thing, when it disappeared, I was actually standing up, and my legs were vibrating and shaking. Because of the trail I had, I was just not going to be kids who were there. I was scared to death. I was so scared that this thing was probably watching me. At that point, I didn't know that I actually walked out of the woods backwards. I did not run. Whatever that thing was, running up behind me or walking up behind me, you know. So once I made it to my vehicle, I threw the crossbones and truck. I jumped in the driver's seat, I locked the doors, and I just sat there. And at that point in my life, I didn't have a cell phone then, and I did. But I wanted, it hit me so hard, I wanted to call the president, I wanted to call my mom and dad and say, it's real, man, God, it's real, I saw it, you know? I couldn't. What are you going to do? I want to learn more about it, you know? I would even love to go out in the woods. That's when I walked over to I go out there with the, I don't even have to with a camera. Of course, I got my cell phone, I got a camera or whatever, but I go out there, I have a bag of chips with me and stuff like that. Maybe one day I'll have an interaction. I don't know. I would love that, you know? But at nighttime, you know, I know these creatures are real, and at night, even during the day when you're in the woods, that's their home. They know you're there. At nighttime, there's no way I'm going to be able to see them walking around the woods with a flashlight. So I drive, you know, I'm not that drive on outside my vehicle, but you
Did I really sound like that? I know I did. Yeah, you did. It's funny, Will, because shortly after we had our encounter, I was ready to go right back out there. And Les was like, "Are you freaking crazy? Going back out there?" So that's where the whole insane thing came from. I got that. Yeah, I got that.
everybody has their own opinion with their view. You probably have to be a little more cautious. Yeah, I can see that. First encounter with those two. You know, back in my own first days, you know, grab them on the rifles where they were tracking. I don't know what the fuck was you know, we figured we'd deal with that when we reached that point.
It's funny because right after it happened, I was going to go and I think he's going back out there again and have another encounter. And he changed his mind since then. He said, man, I could have so many years and know what you're dealing with, have somewhat of an idea of what you're dealing with. But when you actually see one, there's no way to prepare for that.
And I wasn't for a lot of these researchers out there today. Most of them have never seen one, but they actually really want to run. I think they probably let themselves.
Yeah, I would have to decide it.
I was shocked. It's definitely a shock on the system.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go another grill or something.
Yeah, those guys, those are some pretty big shoes to fill out.
Very much so. Very much.
Especially when I didn't realize he was such, larger-than-life character. And that guy's hilarious.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about him on one of the shows. He covers a lot of ground.
I wish the audio was better when he was,
The views and opinions expressed by the host and tonight's guest are not necessarily those of this radio network, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Now lock your doors, open your minds, and prepare yourself to go beyond the edge.
A claw finger steely skinned, half-human crustacean, turning a lonely lighthouse village into a frenzied bedlam of blood-curdling horror.
Creature features. Creature features. Lock the door. Turn off the lights. It's time for Creature Features.
And good evening. Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Edge Radio's Creature Features. It's Sunday night. It's August the 16th, 8:04 here on the East Coast and 5:04 on the West Coast. And welcome everybody to tonight's program. I am your host and producer of the show. Eric Altman would be my name. And with me as always, my Tonto, who is under the weather tonight. So we all got to send our prayers and good thoughts and healing vibes to Marie Samuels. She's come down with a really icky case of the shingles. Yuck.
Yeah, yuck.
Yuck.
Yuck, it sucks.
Oh, my heart goes out to you, sweetheart. I know how bad you must feel.
Thank you.
I don't want to be in your shoes. I'll be honest with you. I love you to death, but I don't want to be in your shoes.
It'll be just a few more days, and then I should be back to normal. But, yeah, I'm probably going to be struggling through the show tonight, folks, so just bear with me.
The drugs are wearing off, though.
Yeah, I might have to take some more drugs.
Drugs are good.
No, drugs are bad, okay?
Drugs are bad. Well, we're glad you're with us tonight, Marie, and hopefully you'll feel better soon. I know shingles, I never had them, but I've heard they're really painful and just a pain in the butt, no pun intended.
They are. Yeah, but Tonto never lets her kemosabe down, so...
Well, I appreciate that. Glad you're with us. Our other co-host, Karen Dolan, is not with us tonight. Not sure what happened. Maybe she's having computer issues or a storm. I know it was raining up in New York a little earlier today, so she might be dealing with a power issue, but we'll keep our eyes and ears open for Karen. Hopefully she'll join us sometime this evening.
Yep, cross your fingers.
Yep, definitely. But you got Marie and I tonight. The Lone Ranger and Tonto riding high in the saddle tonight, and it's another edition of Creature Features. Tonight we've got William Jevning joining us, 41-year veteran in the field of Bigfoot research. He's an author, has written several books on the subject, and he'll be joining us at 8:30 tonight to talk about his research and looking into the phenomenon. And before we get him on the show tonight, I got to address something very quickly on William's behalf. A lot of emails and messages this week where people wanted William to talk about the controversy involving a show that he was involved with, Sasquatch Chronicles. Well, I did email William in advance and asked him if he'd be willing to discuss the issue that occurred earlier this year, and due to legal representation and an ongoing legal matter involving the situation, he is not at liberty to discuss it, so we're going to avoid that topic tonight and just talk about Bigfoot and his research and all the fun things out there in the world of cryptozoology.
Yep, we'll have to find out at a later date what the scoop was.
And I'm sure he'll come back on and talk with us. He's a good guy, longtime researcher. Matter of fact, if you're interested in seeing more of his work, he's appeared on America's Book of Secrets on the Bigfoot episode, and we'll talk with him about that, plus his books. And he worked with one of the four horsemen of Sasquatchery, Rene DeHinden, and we'll talk with him about that as well. So there's a lot to talk about with him tonight on the program, and he'll be joining us at the bottom of this hour. A couple other announcements real quick. We'll get these out there. On the show this week, as I said, William Jevning joining us for Creature Features. Next week on the show, we're going to have a fun one. We're going to get up the old jug band and get out the old overalls and chew on a piece of corn and
washboard
and the straw and everything, because we're heading to Tennessee to hang out with the mountain gypsies. Kat Young and Tess Hughes will be joining us. Two lovely ladies, and I've become very good friends with both of them. They're a lot of fun. We'll be talking with them about healing, house blessings. They're light workers. They work with a lot of homeopathic medicines, herbal medicines, and they do some great energy work. They'll be joining us as we have a rootin' tootin' good time next Sunday night here on the program.
A rootin' tootin'.
Did I just say rootin' tootin'?
That was awesome.
I like that. That was rootin' tootin'. Yeehaw! I know that she's going to send me a message saying, what the hell are you talking about? But Kat and Tess are a lot of fun. They like to laugh and have fun, and we'll have fun with them next week on the show. And then wrapping up the month on the 30th, Jay Bachochin, a very dear friend of mine, which I got to say happy birthday to Jay, who had a birthday yesterday. Jay Bachochin, Neil Sanders, and Scott Marcus will be joining us to talk about a DVD that they've put together and put out there called The Hidden Truth. It's a sad story about several men that drowned in a river in Wisconsin, and some of the paranormal slants and angles to the possible deaths. Maybe a river creature involved, maybe a serial killer, maybe some paranormal aspects. We're not sure, but we'll find out what The Hidden Truth is on August the 30th.
Yeah, that's going to be a hell of an episode. It's
going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to talk to the guys and have them on. A couple other things I want to throw out there real quick. I got to say, I don't even know, I'm so embarrassed by saying this, but my birthday was Wednesday, and I was just, and I still am, I'm overwhelmed and blown away by the love, the support, the birthday wishes that people sent me. I just can't thank you guys enough. I spent, almost 8 hours on Wednesday trying to reply to everybody, thanking them for birthday wishes and all the nice things that people sent. You know, I'm at a loss for words, Marie. I really am.
Well, people love you.
Well, I don't know about that, but
I do.
But it was so nice to get so many birthday wishes and so many people showing their love and affection, and I was just really touched by that. That really made my day on Wednesday. So thank you, everybody, for your kind words, your thoughts, your cards, your messages, texts, phone calls. I opened Skype up to get on the show tonight, and I had messages there wishing me happy birthday. So thank you so much for that. That really means a lot, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I saw how, you got blown up.
Oh, you have no idea. Well, you do.
Yeah,
I tried to keep up with it at work, with my phone, getting a little break here and there to say thank you to everybody who sent stuff in, but I couldn't. And I actually got home that evening and sat down and tried to send thank you replies to each individual that sent me something, just to say thank you, because that's me. I try to be as personal as I can, and wow, I spent 2 hours straight, my thumbs hurt, just replying to all these messages. I was like, okay, stop, please. I thank you so much, and it just kept coming. But thank you very much. It really means a lot, and I really appreciate everybody's birthday wishes. So, A couple other things real quick. There is a really cool event coming up on October the 8th through the 11th. It's called the Ramblewood Paranormal Retreat. Tickets are still on sale right now. You can go to phenomevents.com and get your tickets there. They are going to stop selling tickets on September 1st, so you have roughly 2 weeks left to get your tickets and come out and join the event. They're going to have ghost hunting at the Ramblewood Haunted Mansion. They're going to be camping in cabins and tents. They're going to have ghost stories around the campfire. I'm going to be leading several Bigfoot hikes and hunts during the day and night during that weekend, so it's going to be a blast. If you want to get your tickets and join us, you can do so by going to phenomevents.com and sign up. The price includes your cabin rental, all your meals, all your drinks and beverages, snacks, admission to the Haunted Mansion to do ghost hunting 24/7, which I think is just awesome. You can go in there anytime, stay all night. You get to go out in the woods with me, hang out with me, and watch me make a buffoon of myself like I usually do. Sit out in the woods, look for Bigfoot, be around other paranormal investigators and enthusiasts. Bob Christopher will be there. Brian Cano from Haunted Collector will be there. The Mountain Gypsies will be there. A lot of folks from the paranormal will be there hanging out, having fun. So phenomevents.com to join us at the Haunted Ramblewood Paranormal Retreat coming up October 8th through the 11th. And I'm out of breath. That's all it is for me for announcements and things coming up. You want to jump into some paranormal news?
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you have something you want to announce.
No. Just bear with me, people.
We're going to have fun tonight. Okay. Let's jump into paranormal news.
Paranormal news. Since it's creature features, I'm going to start off with a Bigfoot sighting.
Woohoo.
Woohoo. Bigfoot. Yeah, woohoo. Read the news. All right. Bigfoot sighting in North Carolina. Watched little dog chase Bigfoot away. A man vacationing in Henderson County says he spotted and videoed what he believes to be a Bigfoot. Eric Walters was able to capture a Bigfoot on video as it ran through the woods. While he was frightened, he had his wits about him, and he took out his phone and filmed the creature. Zippy, his dog, got loose and chased after the beast. Either there's a Sasquatch out there or someone's trying to play a practical joke, said Walters. Walters said that Zippy is a brave little guy for chasing Bigfoot away, reports KLTV. He saved me from a possible encounter, Walters said, and I love him more than ever. As with all these types of videos, you can't really make out much of anything. Walters said he is renting a cabin on Buck Forest Road with his wife and another couple, and he shot the video on his phone. Gay Weber, an official with an Asheville vacation rental company, says that the sighting was near its rental cabin 41 on Gold Anchor Lane off NC9 South. Bear with me, people. Gay Weber, Chief Marketing Officer with Carolina Mornings, Inc., says the company's rental sign is clearly visible in the video. Weber also said he's familiar with the site because he's been there. I'm flattered that even Bigfoot knows that Carolina Mornings is the best vacation rental company in western North Carolina, Weber joked on Friday. He said the company has been getting a lot of questions from people who watched the video and saw the rental sign. My inbox is blowing up, Weber said. He said he has never seen a Bigfoot on Gold Anchor Lane, but it is a great cabin in a beautiful location. So, Gay Weber is definitely capitalizing on this alleged sighting. And that's actual audio of Zippy chasing Bigfoot away. Now, I shared this on Facebook. I shared this footage with, and it's like the article says. You can't really see much of anything. You see the rental sign and Zippy.
You see Zippy.
Yeah.
There's his older cousin, Zappy.
I was going to say Pippi.
Pippi and Zippy. Yeah, gotta love those dogs. I saw the video, and it blew up my Facebook page. I had, like you probably saw, a lot of people sent it to me and asked me for my opinion. And I can tell you just by watching the video, and this is my honest opinion, that it's more likely a hoax. And the reason I say it is because from studying the Bigfoot phenomenon and knowing that dogs have an overwhelming fear of Bigfoot, this little dog kind of ran towards it and then turned and kind of started barking at the woods to its left, and then just kind of nonchalantly trotted up a trail. Meanwhile, this guy's going, "Oh, Zippy! Oh my gosh, Zippy! Look, you saved me! I so love you, Zippy!" And Zippy's just like, like no big deal,
right?
Yeah.
And Zippy was a tiny little thing too.
Yeah.
I don't know, and you barely see the creature. I mean, he's like in the frame for a couple of seconds.
Yeah. I don't think it was a Bigfoot. I think Mr. whatever his name was, Walters, I think he was the victim of a poor hoax, or he was involved in it. And poor Zippy, he's got to be traumatized.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
I think Gay Weber, the guy, running the rental company, set it up.
Maybe.
To get, what's the word I'm looking for?
Draw tourists in.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe. I didn't think of it that way.
Well, because, I mean, with the comments that he's making, he's obviously capitalizing on the whole thing. And, it's really interesting that the sign was in the video. I mean, the sign was really what you see most in the entire video.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. But maybe Pippi's trying to be a star, or Zippy, or whatever his name is.
Zippy.
Zippy. That's a cute dog's name. I was thinking more like Toto, because it's about the size of Toto.
It looked like Toto, yeah. That's exactly what it looked like.
Right. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see if anything further develops out of that area, because, Zippy might be famous. We might see more videos of Zippy coming to the rescue.
Zippy will get his own Finding Bigfoot show.
Yeah, Zippy fighting off Godzilla and taking on Rodan, Mothra.
All of them.
Yeah. Zippy is my hero. There he goes. Chasing Bigfoot into the darkness. Well, I got a Bigfoot story for you, and this one is actually from my neck of the woods, my own little state here in Pennsylvania, one county away from me, and this is actually pretty funny. I saw the video for this. This guy has to be, I don't know, wishful thinking, because I've watched his videos, and I'm sorry, but there's no Bigfoot in his videos. But the story's amusing. So
I watched the videos too. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, there's nothing there. But I'll read it, and it's kind of funny. A man dedicated to finding Bigfoot in the Pennsylvania woods says he is sure what he captured on Monday on the camera was the actual creature. Dr. Squatch, a YouTuber from Allegheny County, says he notices the animal later while reviewing the footage he took in an area he refers to as the poop spot. There it is. Okay, there was so much poop there, he says. I was looking at the ground the whole time. I wasn't looking at anything else and holding the camera up in case I caught something, and I did. I missed this fella. The short video, which appears to have been slowed down to half speed, shows a bunch of trees and a dark silhouette at the bottom of one of the trunks. What makes the Pennsylvanian so certain that the dark shape was a Bigfoot creature and not a natural formation, he says, is that he reportedly went back to the same spot the next day and there wasn't anything there. In the video, it's hunkered down, hard to tell its size. I always go back to the locations, and if it's a tree stump, I delete the video, only the truth here. There wasn't anything in the spot that means jackpot. Yeah, jackpot. He took the new
jackpot?
Yeah, jackpot. He took the new footage at the same location, which he titled "Return to the Poop Spot." Man, he's creative. I like this guy. He uploaded it to YouTube right away in order to make a case for his sighting. Some YouTube users commented on the video, adding their thoughts and even describing the physical features of the purported creature. Damn good catch. You can make out its monkey face as it follows your movements as you go around the tree, says, and this is a really hard name to pronounce, Vestalian Codis. Coming up with a personal theory about the crouching Bigfoot. It must have been taking a poop.
All right, but I'll let you finish.
Others, like Aaron Kearney, suggest offering the creature some apples, to what Dr. Squatch replied that this is possibly not a good idea since they become a little more leery when you gift them. Although, according to the videographer, he has already tried that once, and when he fed them probably 50 pies. 50 pies.
Yeah.
My goal is to catch one off guard, sneak up on him, explains the doc. The Sasquatch enthusiast has raised many eyebrows before, attracting the attention of critics and skeptics wanting to debunk of what he calls evidence. That is what happened in late June when he released images of what appeared to be a big-eyed monkey-like animal. Now, Allegheny County has a population of over 1 million, and Dr. Sasquatch says it's the #1 county in the world for Bigfoot reports, according to the BFRO, which it isn't. And it looks like Dr. Sasquatch's uphill battle to prove the existence of the primate has just begun. I just sent this to a cop friend who was the worst skeptic, and it was a battle back and forth. I told him he was in denial. He said, I'm seeing stuff, he confessed. So, yeah, he's seeing stuff and probably smoking stuff.
Even if that was really a Sasquatch, it would have had to have been, like, a newborn. I mean, because you saw how, like, short it was.
There's something in the video. Okay, it's a dark form.
Right.
It's too far away and too blurry to tell exactly what it is. So to call it a Sasquatch is an enormous leap. He could have easily put something there in that next to that tree and filmed it and pretended not to have seen it, and then gone back the next day and said, "Oh, look, it's not there." It's easy to do, and unless the thing got up and walked away or it moved, how the hell does he know if it was sitting there taking a poop?
Well, and when he went back the next day, there was no poop where he saw it taking a poop.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Mr. Sasquatch or Dr. Sasquatch is full of poop. My opinion. Enough of that. On to our next story.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
All right. I photographed a gray alien, says Virginian. Yeah, it's a good one. A 57-year-old man took a photograph that he says shows a gray alien looking through his living room windows in Southwest Virginia. The anonymous man said last Saturday that the peeping alien was there the night of July 30th. I have a picture of a gray alien that I took last night, he said. This picture was taken around 2 a.m. at the living room window of my home. The photograph shows a transparent shape that appears to be a reflection from the inside of the room. There is an oval-shaped face on the right side of the image standing next to the reflection of a red object. You have to look close at the picture, but it's there, he explains. The gray had big eyes and was about 4 feet tall. It is unclear whether the alien image he is referring to could be just a case of pareidolia, the human brain's capability to see faces and familiar shapes in lines and dots arranged in a certain pattern. However, he adds, he also took a different picture last night where he says you can observe an unhuman-like fingerprint on a different window in the house. The man, who claims to have been dealing with alien problems all his life, says the picture is 100% real and that it has not been photoshopped. He is now asking for help dealing with these beings. He says he keeps seeing in his home frequently. I've been scratched, needle pricked multiple times. I've had handprints on my chest after waking up. I have had problems since I was 8, and I am no longer afraid of them, but I would like to get some help, if there is any, the Virginian said. Last May, a woman in New Jersey said an alien had broken into her house and took her watch using a circular energy tool. And we reported on that one.
I remember that story.
Yeah. So apparently these grays are breaking into people's houses and taking watches? I don't know. This guy says he's been dealing with them since he was 8.
Yeah, I don't know. I have the giggles tonight. I'm sorry. Pooping Bigfoots has got me in a giddy mood.
You're getting my meds. Everybody's saying
we're sharing meds tonight. Yeah, we're sharing meds. I don't know what to make of these stories, and I'm open-minded. You know, I think maybe it's possible some people are having encounters and experiences, but if you're going to present a photo that you say captured an alien or a pooping Bigfoot or any kind of creature, ghost, UFO, whatever, make sure it's clear enough that we're not trying to figure out what it is. I mean, if I've got to sit and look at a picture that looks like a blob, you're not going to convince me. I'm sorry. Right. And then your whole story's thrown out the window. So if you're going to come forward with a claim like you captured a gray, stealing your wristwatch or whatever the case may be, a pooping Bigfoot, make sure it's clear enough that I can see it holding Charmin toilet paper. Right. It's not much to ask for, is it?
No, it's not. I
don't think. Oh, well. We got time for one more quick story here. And this one comes from the Republic of Congo, where a man claiming to be a park ranger at Lake Telly says he spotted the dinosaur-like monster known as the Mekele Mbembe. The 45-year-old man, who disclosed his full name but asked to remain anonymous, told Cryptozoology News on Wednesday that he was out on a boat looking for illegal fishermen when he and another person encountered the animal. A long neck went out of the water, he explained. It turned, looked at us, moved around, and then disappeared underwater. The man said the creature was out of the water for about 5 minutes and that it had a black, snake-like neck and red eyes. He did not provide further information regarding the physical features of the animal or the identity of the other person on the boat at the time of the reported sighting. When attempting to deliver follow-up questions to the original email address indicating the possibility of a hoax or the desire to stay anonymous, the park ranger's identity could not be immediately verified. Located northeast of the Republic of Congo, Lake Telly is reputed to be the habitat of the Mekele Mbembe, a reptilian creature believed to be similar to the Scotland's Loch Ness Monster. Some cryptozoologists believe the unproven water-dwelling monster could be a sauropod. The earliest reference to the beast appeared in the book History of Loango, Kakongo, and Other Kingdoms in Africa by Abbe Liviane Bonaventure, portrait in 1776, or Proyart. French name I can't pronounce, so bear with me. But that's the latest coming out of the Congo, another supposed Mekele Mbembe sighting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we had a couple of cryptozoologists on earlier this year, Adam Davies and the name escapes me. I can picture him in my head, but I can't think of his name. The cryptozoologist from British Columbia.
John Kirk.
Thank you, John Kirk. They were on, and they both talked about the Mekele Mbembe and their research into looking into the phenomenon.
Well, and if there is some sort of prehistoric creature still surviving, I would suspect it would be in a country like Africa that's not as advanced as the United States or Canada or Europe, or
Right.
So it's compelling.
It is compelling, and yeah, I have to agree. I'm more inclined to think there's more to a story when someone remains anonymous and doesn't share their identity, especially if it's a law enforcement officer or someone in the military or someone in a high-ranking authority, because they don't want to lose their job, and I can respect that. I don't have a qualms with someone remaining anonymous. I do have problems when someone sends out a blurry picture of a Bigfoot taking a poop, and they're saying it's what it is, and it really could be anything. That's where I have issues with. But as far as the anonymous thing goes, yeah, I'm okay with that. And there might be something to those stories. I'm just a little not so sure on the other stories, but who am I?
Eric Altman, Crypto King.
I don't know about that.
I just called you it.
Well, Crypto King? That belongs to somebody else.
King of the Cryptos?
That one's mine. I'll call that one. I'll call that one.
Claimed.
Claimed. Well, we've had enough giddiness and fun for one evening.
No, when we just got started, honey.
We just got started. That's true. We got to make way for William Jevning, who's calling in on the show, and he'll be joining us in just a few minutes. As we are featuring Bill tonight on the program talking about Bigfoot. So let's jump into our commercial break. And remind everybody you are listening to Beyond the Edge Radio's Creature Features live here on the Para-X Radio Network, IRN, the Internet Radio Network, WAHR-FM, Radio Love, Planet Paranormal, TuneIn Radio, and if it's Wednesday nights, you're listening to the rebroadcast of BTE's Creature Features on the Intrepid Paradigm Broadcast Network. We'll be back right after this with Bigfoot. Stick around.
The monsters and mayhem will continue with BTE Radio's Creature Features after this.
Sagan once wrote that the questioning mind needs to be instilled with both skepticism and wonder, for the universe is a pretty big place, filled with undelved mysteries, sciences, and life that we've barely begun to comprehend. Every month, Intrepid Magazine brings you both the wondrous and the skeptical. Intrepid Magazine focuses on science, metaphysics, UFOs, politics, conspiracies, and unexplained phenomenon, all offered up by Intrepid's cadre of writers and contributors, comprised of a host of seasoned authors, pundits, and recognized names in their fields. The universe is indeed a big place, and where other magazines leave off, Intrepid Mag is just beginning. Subscribe to Intrepid Magazine today at www.intrepidmag.com. That's www.intrepidmag.com.
Visit the National Museum of Mysteries and Research Center today.
The museum as a physical building opened about 5 years ago. I wanted to open a research center, a library where people could come and talk about the unexplained, research different phenomena. We have over 1,500 books where people can come and browse through all day. We have newspaper clippings on the ghost phenomena, Bigfoot phenomena, UFO, and other unexplained things where they can research as well. We have all the ghost hunting tools. We have Bigfoot casts, a lot of pop culture stuff on Bigfoot, as well as Casper, E.T., Ghostbusters. Well, we have newspaper accounts of the Men in Black, which were associated with UFOs. Over the years, people claim to have taken photographs of ghosts and such, ectoplasm. Most people are fascinated with the unexplained. That's what the museum was for, but it's also for skeptics, too. The museum's not about to convince people that these things happen, that it is real. It's believe it or not. We have monthly lectures that helps fund the museum. Oftentimes it's me lecturing on something I've investigated or my research, and other times we have outside speakers come in and host book signings and such. The museum's at 301 Locust Street in Columbia, Pennsylvania, right off of the beaten path. When people come here, they love it, they enjoy it, and they go back and tell their friends, and their friends visit us. Come to the museum, I think you'll enjoy it. It's a really weird place.
The National Museum of Mysteries and Research Center will be expecting you.
Have you ever wanted to spruce up the marketing material for your business? Have you ever wanted to turn those memories you have on slides or VHS tapes into DVDs? Have you ever wanted to create the perfect personalized video for a loved one? Then look no further. The sky is the limit with Chumbucket Studios. Anything is possible because it all begins with a little imagination. Please visit www.chumbucketstudios.com for more information.
Welcome to the Waverly Hills Sanatorium audio experience. Take an 80-minute audio tour inside one of the most haunted locations in the United States. Available on iTunes and cdbaby.com. 100% of the proceeds go to stompoutcancer.com, a non-profit charity that is working hard to help kids and young adults fight cancer. For more information, go to www.stompoutcancer.com.
Even that restraining order couldn't keep us away. BTE Radio's Creature Features is back.
Good evening and welcome back to tonight's program. This is BTE Radio's Creature Features. I'm your host and producer of the program tonight. My name is Eric Altman, and with me, as always, the Tonto of podcasting and of BTE Radio, the lovely Marie Samuels. Marie, how you doing this evening?
Hanging in there, Eric. Hanging in there.
Pain meds start to kick off, wear off yet?
Not yet.
Good. Good. It'll keep us on our toes, that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, like I said, anytime during the evening, if you feel the need to jump off, be more than my guest, and do so. I know dealing with that is pretty painful, so I wouldn't want it.
I'm not going to leave my Kemosabe.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
It'll take a lot more than shingles to keep me away.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Well, we do have a great show in store for everybody tonight because we have 41-year veteran, Bigfoot research and author William Jevning joining us on the program tonight. We're going to be talking Bigfoot and some of the cases he's looked into, the research he's found out, government involvement, all kinds of fascinating things to talk with William tonight. You can find out more about him by going to our website, beyondtheedgeradio.com, and right there on the main page, there's a bio written up on Will and a link to his research blog, jevningresearch.blogspot.com. Check that out. He updates it frequently. And with that, we're going to welcome to the show William Jevning. Good evening, Will. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I've been looking forward to talking with you for some time, as we're both Bigfoot researchers and enthusiasts, and I'm very glad you joined us tonight on the show. It's going to be a fun evening this evening. Now, let's go back in time, shall we? As your bio says, you've been doing this for a long time, 41 years. And this obviously
43 years now.
43 years. Well, congratulations. That's a milestone.
It makes me feel old.
I can relate. I've been doing it 35. I started when I was about 10. So I'm not getting up there yet, but I'm getting there. I know how you feel. I want to find out, if I may, something sparked your interest in this. Something kicked this off for you, and I know personally what did, but our listeners don't. Would you mind sharing that event that happened to you when you were a child that pretty much got your interest piqued?
Sure. Well, it was the middle of December back in 1972, and I was, the ripe old age of 14 at that time. And to give you a little background, our parents, it was okay with them if we went and visited each other, our friends. We could stay and visit each other. Start over there a little bit. I got a little tongue-tied there. We could go visit our friends if we wanted to, but we had to figure out how to do it. Our parents weren't going to transport us around from house to house on the weekend. So what we would do, we got ingenious. If a friend wanted to go stay at another friend's house, they'd just ride the school bus to their house, spend the weekend, and then come back Monday on the bus and go home the normal way. So that particular December, a friend came over to stay the weekend, and it had snowed, so it was kind of boring. So we decided to go to another friend's house that lived about a mile away. And with snow on the ground, it would have been shorter to take the trail up through the timber, but we couldn't find the trail with the ground covered, so we decided to walk down the road and then catch a railroad line that went in front of our friend John's house. And we walked down the road, and we got about halfway along the rail line to his house. And now, mind you, there was nothing uncovered except the bare rails. And if you picture a hill from the high point on the left going down in front of you to your right, the tracks went along the side of the hill like that, and on either side of the tracks, on the upper part and the lower part, there was a fire access road that a rough one had been pushed in there the year before. And we saw something red between the rails ahead of us. So we walked up there, and here's this pile of intestines laying between the rails. And we kind of scratched our heads thinking, okay, how'd this get here? There's no animal footprints anywhere. So we could see the access road below us, nothing down there. So I told my friend Mark, you walk ahead, see if you can see anything up there, and I'll climb the hill to the left and see if there's anything up there. And as I crested the hill, the snow was just chewed up with all these footprints everywhere, dozens of them. So I yelled at him, and he came running up there, and we were standing there with our mouths hanging open, looking at all these what looked like human footprints, but they were about twice the size of a normal grown adult's foot. And we're thinking, in the snow, somebody barefoot up here with that big a foot. And then I kind of looked at him, and I said, it was in the teens that morning. It was really cold. And I looked at him, and I said, those guts weren't frozen. So whatever did this is really close by. Then we got scared and took off running. And we got to our friend John's house, where both of us were pounding on the door furiously. And we had two younger brothers and sisters. So all these kids, were just in pandemonium in the living room. And his dad come out, and he says, boys, settle down. What's going on? So we told him, and he grabbed a .45 pistol and a camera. And he said, take me back up there and show me what you found. So this group, went back up there, and he's taking all these pictures. And he walks over and he starts telling us what little he knew about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And, of course, when you're 14, any monster, especially if a real one, is told to you that they exist in the woods, grabs your attention. So we went out every weekend available, looking, didn't see another thing. So, as a kid, you kind of forget about that, if things don't keep stimulating your interest. And and nothing happened again until the fall of 1974. And my dog was barking one evening right just before dark. And there were a lot of raccoons and skunks and things coming in the yard all the time. Elk used to come down and eat with the cattle, so it was a fairly rural area, a lot of wildlife. And thinking there was something like that nearby, my dad overheard shoot any of these animals that come in the yard, they might be rabbits. So I grabbed one of my 22s, a couple of bullets, grabbed the dog, headed towards the tree line where he was barking. He gets to the tree line and he freezes. And I thought, what in the world? He's standing there with his ears up and just frozen. And I got about halfway to where he was at, and he wheeled around and come flying past me back towards the house. And I'm kind of scratching my head mentally. And, you know, the dog had gotten into a porcupine twice in his life, so he would chase anything. And I couldn't figure out what he was doing. He ran to the back porch, and he climbed up there, and he sat there, and he was shivering. And I thought, what the heck? So I walk up to the tree line, and I could hear something inside the trees. There were some low-hanging fir limbs there, so I chambered around, pushed my way through the tree limbs, and inside the line of fir trees, there was a big maple tree in there, and the leaves were off here. It must have been around October. And right around 15 feet in front of me, here's this massive thing standing in these leaves, moving them with its right foot. And in instant shock, I just thought, oh, my God, what in the hell is that? You know, and all these things are going through my mind, and when it saw me, it stopped moving. And we just kind of stood there and looked at each other, and it was getting dark, so, I mean, it's funny, you know, I mean, with the way the light was coming through the trees there were parts of it that were very clear, parts not so clear because of the shadowing. I could tell that it was kind of glaring at me, but I didn't get a great detail because of hair cover and things like that, but I could tell you exactly what the hair looked like, what the toes looked like, everything like that. And I thought, all these things are going through my mind in milliseconds. And I finally thought, oh, that must be one of the things that made the footprints that we saw 2 years before. So I thought, okay, what do I do now? I hunted with my dad and knew a 22 was nowhere near, you know, any sort of size to do anything to this thing because it was between 4 and 5 feet across the shoulder, chest from front to back, around 3 feet thick. It was massive, around 8 feet tall. I figured about 800 pounds.
Wow.
So I thought, well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said, wow.
Oh, yeah, it's what I call, you know, an underwear changing moment.
Yeah.
Right.
I laugh now, but it scares the hell out of you. I mean, unless you've seen one of these things, and especially that close, you have no way to be prepared for that, ever. Even if you studied the subject for decades, unless you'd actually walked into one, you're still going to need to change your underwear after that experience.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I decided to shoot in the air to see, I thought maybe it'll scare it away. So I shot in the air, and it stayed motionless, and I heard a noise over my right shoulder. So I turned my head just a little bit, keeping my eyes on this thing, and here comes another one from behind some brush. And it was a little smaller, probably a head shorter, a couple 100 pounds or so lighter, and it walked over and stood by the first one. And that was my cue to take off running, because that was it. I was done. And I called my buddy John, and I knew they were just going to be on me in seconds, but they didn't follow me.
Wow.
So I called him, and I told him what happened. Now, we'd been made fun of by the other parents for finding those and saying what they were in 1972. So I didn't tell my parents, didn't say anything. I called John, told him what happened. He says, well, we'll get some of the guys, we'll come over to your house at first light, and we'll track them. So that's what we did with our hunting rifles, and we tracked them for a mile or so until we lost the trail, and that was that. And we didn't really see anything outside of ourselves. A friend of mine, or a friend of ours, overheard us talking on an after-school activities bus one evening quietly about it. And he was one of these guys that was kind of a quiet, shy guy, didn't talk to anybody, didn't really have any friends. And he wanted to know what happened, and I thought, well, okay, we'll tell him. So he said, well, can I interview you? I thought, well, okay, whatever, it's not going to go anyplace. So he jotted all these notes down, and about a week or so later gave me three books written by John Green from Canada. And, of course, I was amazed. I didn't know there was anything really written on the topic. We didn't even know the topic existed until we found the footprints. And the following summer, Renee DeHinden came to my house. And, you know, he questioned me about the things. Apparently my friend had ridden to John Green, and they had come to the Puyallup area back in 1975 to investigate the Puyallup streamer events. And I was invited to the camp, stayed with them a couple days, met some other people in the field, and they wanted me to stay in touch with them, be their eyes and ears in the South Puget Sound area. So everything sort of took off from there.
Wow, that's an amazing way to be baptized by fire, if you will. Wow.
It sure was.
Yeah, to have not only the encounter that you found the footprints in the snow, and I'm assuming that the toes and everything were so clear that you had no doubt in your mind what they were definitely footprints of a person or some kind of creature rather than like an elk or moose or bear or...
Right, and I'd been close to bear when I was 10. I ran almost 5 feet in front of a black bear, so I knew what bear were very clear, and these, of course, there were actually 3 sets of tracks there. The largest one was around 18 inches long.
Wow.
And, of course, there's no black bear that makes a track that long. And the other 2 were right around 15, 16 inches. One was 15, I think the other was 16. But they were clearly 3 different sets.
Mm. Now, in your second encounter where you saw the 2 creatures, and you kept it very low-key with the exception of reporting it to a few friends, and obviously Renee got wind of it and came down to visit you, was there any other sightings in that area that occurred at that time, and was Renee aware of those as well?
You know, the focus, when DeHinden and Green came to Puyallup, their focus was on the South Hill Puyallup area. That's where a lot of the activity, the screaming and things were going on. And there was a state trooper who had seen all 3 of the creatures. I only saw 2 of them. He saw all 3 of them. They walked right in front of his car one evening. But as he was making out a report, he heard this noise and heard the thing come down the bank. They walked in front of his car up the other bank and were gone. And, of course, he sat there with his mouth hanging open. But I'm actually still receiving reports from the area I grew up in where people, nobody talked about it in those days.
Right.
But a lot of people saw things.
Have you been back to that area to do any follow-up research or any present research?
Not that very area because it's so built up now. There's a lot of people there, and I don't really think there's anything happening there nowadays. They've moved out, closer to Mount Rainier in that area.
Right. Oh, it makes sense. One last question, and I'll turn things over to Marie. With these 2 sightings that you had, and the books that you were given to read by John Green, which is something I highly recommend for anybody that's interested in the subject, is to get your hands on these books by John, especially Apes Among Us. And then, of course, meeting Renee and having them come down and spend time with you. These are, as you know, these are like the main researchers in the field at that time. And being a novice yourself, just having your 2 sightings under your belt and really not having any research, what was going through your mind meeting some of the biggest names that were doing this? I mean, were you overwhelmed, or was it just kind of like, I'm just going out to look for Bigfoot?
Well, actually, I'd only had 1 sighting at that time. The first time was just footprints.
Okay.
And then I had the actual encounter
with the 2 creatures.
In 74. And then I did have a second sighting, but that was in 1988.
Okay.
But... yeah, when I read the books, of course, just pored over and over them, and became very well acquainted with the faces and names in the books, and when you're a teenager, you kind of absorb that stuff pretty quick.
Right.
And then when of course, I knew who DeHinden was. One afternoon that summer of 1975, one of my sisters came. I was kind of napping. It was kind of a cloudy, pretty overcast day, and so for some reason I was napping in my room, and one of my sisters came and said, "There's a couple of men here to see you." And I'm thinking, a couple of men? I don't know any men. I'm a 17-year-old kid. I only know my uncles and my dad's friends. So I slip on my barn boots and I walk out the back porch where the driveway came in, and there's this green Jeep Wagoneer, and a guy standing by it that I didn't recognize, but the man walking up towards the porch was Renee DeHinden. I recognized him right away, and I thought, oh my God, here's, reading all these books, and here's one of the main guys himself walking up to the door. So he introduced himself, and and I was just kind of, mentally jaw hanging open, and he asked me about what I'd seen. He told me that my friend had written to John Green, and they were in the area investigating, and he decided to come out and interview me. So we talked, and he says, well, look, we had this camp just a few miles north here. Why don't you come up and meet Green and some of the other fellows up there? So I said, sure, and got on the phone, tried to find one of my buddies that had a car, and off we went. And, of course, going there and meeting John Green and the state trooper, Mark Pittenger, was there, and some other people, I realized, I've never been the kind that was really starstruck, but I sort of, the gravity of who these guys were, they were the two main world-famous Sasquatch hunters at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was a big thing.
Yeah, it had to blow you away. I know. When I first met my mentor, Stan Gordon, here in Pennsylvania, it was just, I was starstruck. I still am after knowing him for 30 years. So, but I can.
And it's funny. Oh, yeah, and those two guys, they operated completely different, and I didn't know it at that time. That was probably the last time that Green and Hinton had done anything together, because they were kind of on the outs already.
Yeah, right.
And they really didn't show it outwardly, but, when you're a kid, you pick up on things. I could tell they weren't real cordial to one another. And Green dealt more with the public there and kind of watched during the day. And Hinton, I spent a lot of time around Hinton because I wanted to be out in the field looking. I wanted to see what was going on. So I followed him around, him and this other guy, Dennis Gates, at night. We did patrol the roads and things at night. So, of course, I was scared to death knowing that if these guys are here, there had to be, these Sasquatches had to be really close by.
Huh. Now, I was going to ask if you had had any other sightings since then, and you mentioned you had one in 88?
Yeah, when I got out of the military, I moved to Vancouver, Washington, and my girlfriend at the time suggested, we were sitting around talking, and she said, well, it's great, you spend so much time with me and the kids, but you have a hobby that you'd like to be doing, and I hadn't told her about this. So I thought, well, the only way to tell somebody is you just tell them, and if they think you're nuts, they do, and if they don't, well, you're okay. So I went ahead and just told her, and she was really excited. She says, wow, you should really get back into doing that in this area. So I had written to Green and Hinton both and told them where I was living, and they were excited that there was, they said I was the first real Sasquatch hunter in that area since Roger Patterson. So I ended up contacting one of the local newspapers, and the editor and one of his photographers knew the area really well and were familiar with some of the stories, so they got my foot in the door in that area. And in March of '88, we were heading up. We had found tracks a couple of times near the snow line, so I wanted to go up before the snow was gone, because that area is very rocky, and in that part of Skamania County, western Skamania County, so you don't find tracks very often. So the snow was the best medium to find them in. And I remember below the snow line driving along thinking how pretty the water was in the Washougal River. It flows on a bed of lava rock. There's no real sediment in it, so it's very clear, and it was kind of a real gorgeous blue-green color that day. And it made me think about fishing when I was a kid up at Mount Rainier, some of the rivers up there. And as I was kind of daydreaming and driving along, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye, and I looked over to the left just across the river, and here's this enormous gray Sasquatch. It was by the water. It took a couple of steps, reached up, grabbed an alder tree, and was gone that quick. That, I call that the Goldilocks sighting that everybody wants. They don't want to be too close, but they want to be close enough to see one and not have to be in harm's way.
Right. This one was gray, and the first three or two that you saw, that they were more brown in color?
Well, there were the two. I didn't see the third one of that group,
right.
But the two that I saw were dark colored. And the hair color, it wasn't a uniform color. It was, I would say, more dark brown. There might have been a little black. There were some lighter strands here and there. And it was probably 5-6 inches long, and it was kind of matted and dirty. There were stuff, from the forest in it.
Right.
So it wasn't like what you see in the Patterson Dome. It wasn't very well kept at all.
And then do you think that maybe they turn gray as they get older?
It's possible. It could be very much like the silverback gorillas.
Yeah. Or
that
humans.
Particular individual, that individual had been seen by hunters in that area for more than 20 years. So I had documented a lot of sightings of that particular one.
Now, William, you mentioned you were in the military. Did you ever talk to anybody in the military you served your time with about your hobby or your experience?
Well, I did mention to it. I mean, the local units in the military are very self-contained in a lot of ways. You sort of build up trust with each other, and you can talk about things with, like in the unit I was with the 5th Cav. In fact, our unit did a lot of the work at Mount St. Helens when it erupted, and in fact, I was on a helicopter flying back from Yakima the morning it blew. So a lot of our pilots knew what my hobby was. And but other than that, my squad, one time we were out, I guess I should back up a little bit. We're pretty sure, I can't say for definite sure because I couldn't see it that well with the night vision goggles we had. We had the brand new, what was called the ANPBS-5 night goggles when night vision goggles first came into the inventory. And we were trying them out, and they weren't a whole lot better than Starlight scopes. Of course, the generations after that were much better, much clearer, but those early versions still weren't real great. And our Cav squad at that time was about 15 men strong, and we worked mostly at night. And I told the guys, okay, we're going to practice setting up an ambush. Told the corporals, put your men in place. And I took my radio man, and our job was to be in between the squads so that we are the fire team so we can control them. And I said, we're going to go in here to into this tree line. And I stepped into there, and the guys, I'm dragging him through the brush, and I stopped. And I saw this, all I could see was this big outline in front of me. And it took a step from my right to my left. And even to this moment, I mean, the hair on the back of my neck just went up. My skin went cold. I knew what was there without really seeing it clear. There's nothing else that big that can take a step, two-legged step. And this is at Fort Lewis, Washington, and I'm just told him, back up, out, get out of the brush now, back it up. And I'm pushing it, backing up. And I called or blew my whistle for the squad to rally on me, and I said, okay, look, we're just going to crash out here in the middle of the road, do a 360 security setup, and we're just going to crash out right here for the night tech with training.
And did they ask you what was going on?
What's that?
Did they ask you what was going on, why you backed out of the woods so quickly?
I just told them I was tired. I didn't want to deal with it. And they didn't question. They didn't question me, because I was one of those sergeants that just had a different way with the guys. Mm-hmm. They knew real quick, just don't question me, do what I tell you. Right. I used to tell them, if I tell you something, your life might depend on it in combat. So you do it now, and when we get a chance, I'll talk to you later about it. Gotcha. So I set him down, and pretty soon one of the guys says, hey, Sarge, there's somebody walking around us. And I said, no, I got a call from higher-ups that said nobody's going to be out here tonight. And we'd flown in. We were a long ways away from anybody else, many miles. And then a couple of other guys said, no, I hear somebody walking around us too. So pretty soon all guys were saying, yeah, we can hear, and you could hear what sounded like a person, but it was, obviously not a person walking around the group. And we were out in the middle of a big open area, thankfully, and that's one reason I chose the spot. And one of the guys says, Sarge, you're from here? What do you know about Bigfoot? So I'm kind of thinking, oh boy, do I tell the guys? And I thought, well, okay.
Quite a dilemma.
I told them what I'd seen as a teenager, and but none of the guys would talk about it. To this day, none of them would talk about it.
Wow.
None of your friends or the military guys?
They were my troops.
Yeah.
None of the troops would talk about it. That's interesting. It's not the first time that I've talked to or heard stories from people in the military, whether it be soldiers doing routines or scouting missions or whatever they're doing, patrolling or exercises that have come across something just like you did. something standing on a hillside watching them or watching them from the tree line. I've heard that story countless times from folks who've served.
And it's funny, and it's kind of a thing, with veterans, I get a lot of people contacting me that were in the service, and they'll tell me because I'm a veteran, but they won't tell anyone else. And there's that, there's that connection. We all have that connection with each other.
Right. I did have one quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt. I did have one quick question for you, and you brought something up that I know you've heard about, I've heard about. It's one of the more infamous rumors that are floating around the internet. You mentioned you were flying in a helicopter over Mount St. Helens the day it blew. Have you heard the story about the supposed creatures that were taken out of the Mount St. Helens area after the eruption?
Absolute bunk.
Yeah, I thought so. Me too.
I was flying back through Snoqualmie, or we were getting ready to come back through Snoqualmie Pass when the mountain blew, and they rerouted us north around Mount Rainier. And like I said, I knew most of the pilots, most of the warrant officers who were there. And in fact, one friend, Chief Warrant Officer 3, came in one day to hit this little vial, and they landed right on top of where Harry Truman's house was. He says, you know what this is? I said, I don't know, you want to tell me? He says, this was Harry Truman's house was buried under 100 feet of ash.
Wow.
So, and these guys they all knew what my hobby was. I mean, if anything would have happened, I would have known about it. And there was nothing. Not only that, everything was buried so deep under ash, there's no possible way. And then there's another aspect, a lot of the elk and deer and everything bugged out of that area before the mountain blew anyway, so it's highly unlikely. Right.
That's one of those popular rumors that float around, and it comes up every so often, and everybody debates about it. And I kind of figured it was bunk, but I figured since you said you were there flying over the day, and I figured I'd ask since you have.
I was one of the key NCOs in that unit, so yeah, I would have known.
Right. I want to remind everybody you're listening to BTE Radio's Creature Features right here live on the Para-X Radio Network, IRN, the Internet Radio Network, WAHR-FM, Radio Love, Planet Paranormal, TuneIn Radio, and if it's Wednesday night, you're hearing the rebroadcast of our program on the Intrepid Paradigm Broadcast Network. Our guest tonight is Will Jevning. We're talking about Bigfoot and his 43 years of research and some of his early experiences growing up and getting involved with some of the big names in the Bigfoot research field. And I got to tell you, Will, you're pretty darn lucky to have mentors and folks of that nature to step up and to take you out there and teach you about Bigfoot research. That's getting in with the heavy hitters, as you said.
Oh, yeah, I was fired up. When I got back after Green and Hind and everybody went back to Canada, the last day they both really took a liking to me, I guess, being a kid, and I was pretty serious. My dad always told me, he says, keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut. So I took that to heart when I was around adults, and following the Hind and Dennis Gates around investigating at nights, the area, I stayed very close. Kept quiet. I just paid attention to what was going on. So Lyndon told me that he says, you're pretty good in the bush. in the Hindonese there. So he and Green both told me we exchanged mailing addresses, and they wanted me to keep in touch. And they said, we want you to be our eyes and ears in this region. So if anything happens, give us a call or send us a letter, do whatever. And to Hindon in particular, he sent me stuff constantly, and it was never just a letter. It was always, he made postcards from the famous Raymond Patterson film, and he'd always include a handful of those, in the letters and things. So it was, whatever. I always figured my job was to help them. They were the big guys, and whatever I could find out was, that was my portion, my part in the whole thing, to help them out. And that's what I did until, and mostly I would send things to John Green because I figured he was the one that was really documenting things. Hinden was the guy out in the brush. Green was the one who was cataloging things and trying to kind of process all the information. And over time, by the early 80s, I kind of saw that all the stuff I was collecting nothing was happening with it. So that's where I really started to go off on my own. Of course, Hinden and I we're very good friends, and he sort of kept me out of the limelight from the Bigfoot community. He says, watch and learn. He says, I deal with these people. He says, you don't want to get involved in this myth. So he sort of kept me hidden all those years, and I was very thankful for that because after he passed away in 2001, friends of mine said, you need to start writing because you know all this stuff, having been connected to these guys, you need to start writing this, you know, which I did. Then, of course, I came out in the public, and that's, you know how it is being in the public light. It can be a real curse sometimes.
It's a three-ring circus.
It sure is, especially this topic.
Yes.
So have you only looked for Bigfoot in Washington State, or have you gone to other states in search of Bigfoot?
Well, I currently live in Northern California, and I work the whole coast, actually, and British Columbia, so I cover a wide area, and I have teams all over the country.
And what do you mean by teams? Can you elaborate on how that's set up?
Well, we sort of call it the Jevning Research Group, and I have teams. Let me think, where are they all at? One in Pennsylvania, one in Florida. I'm trying to think, I'm working my west. We're in Montana, California, 2 in California, Washington. Let's see, 1 in Southern California. I think I said that. It's pretty bad. I can't remember where everybody is at the moment. We have 9. We have 9 teams scattered out. Michigan. Boy, that's bad when you can't remember where everybody is. We've been going through a lot of changes lately, so you know, some of the teams have combined, some in new areas, some in the old areas have gone. I mean, so we're undergoing some organizational changes. So, but they're people who mostly have had sightings. Very professional people. They're 2 anthropologists. A lot of police, ex-military, 1 scientist. So we have quite an assemblage.
And do they go out on a regular basis, or do they just go out when there's been claims made that there's been sightings? Or do they do both?
Or both. They do both, yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's kind of like your fingers all over the country.
It is, and it's kept pretty quiet. I mean, the one nice thing about the group, and of course this subject, everybody wants to be in the public spotlight, and no one in the whole organization, and it's kind of a, like I said, kind of a loose organization, wants any public notice. They want to keep quiet. They want to do the work, you know, and then keep us as professional as we can.
Well, absolutely, yeah, because it's hard enough to be taken seriously as it is, you know.
Absolutely, and there's so many, you know, there's rumors, there's all kinds of things that go on, even about myself after I left, you know, the podcast I was doing, and which are unfounded. I mean, what I've been doing since that time is working on a new book and doing field work. So anything else is not founded by any kind of fact at all.
Yeah, I can attest to the rumors. I've been the victim of many rumors myself over the years, but it is.
I'm sure, yeah.
It's a very competitive field, and you're right. There are those who really get out there and jump in the spotlight and look to make a name and money, which you and I both know that you can't really do.
That's true. And, you know, I always say it's as much about human psychology as it is knowing about the creatures themselves.
Oh, sure.
You know, if you really want to understand the topic, it really is. I mean,
yeah, you really have to understand people and their methods and mythology and why they do what they do. And unfortunately, there's a variety of people that you have to deal with personality-wise, too, as I'm sure you know that.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
But we have a question from the chat room. I wanted to throw this out there because I think it's a pretty interesting question. It comes from PSI. Sai wants to know, can you describe the color variation of the hair and what areas each color group might be found in?
Well, they're not really set up by a particular area. A lot of the color variations, now we don't know for specifically sure about this, but it's more likely due to age. there could be some feeding patterns and things like that involved. I mean, there's just about every color range you can imagine. Most often, what's reported is the cinnamon brown color, but the younger ones tend to be black. And some of those turn dark brown, and then there's some mixtures as they get older. So there's really it's not really area specific. I think it's more age related.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that too.
They're not tanner in Florida than they are in Washington.
Right. Yeah, there's. But now here's a wrench that I'll throw in there. There's more than one type.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and as everybody probably heard me before on shows in the past, I talked about one contact that I called Mr. Black. Actually, there's about 6 Mr. Blacks. People who are I can't say they're all in the government. Some are, some aren't. But they have knowledge of things that go on that most people don't. And one of them told me, who was involved with the government, who was actually what had happened back in the 60s or 70s. You know, when we were facing off with the Soviet Union, anything that they did, we would look into seriously, whether it looked serious or not. They wanted to figure out what these guys were up to because they were a potential enemy, you know, or less at the time. So one of the rumors that they got was that the Soviets were trying to weaponize their version of these creatures. So our people started looking into it. And as this went on, they were able to determine not only, I mean, they were able to locate them, photograph them. They had dissected at least a couple of them. And they knew that there were at least 4 different types, 2 major species groups with 2 subspecies in each one of those. And
this
then
is the
Russians? No, this is here.
Okay.
Actually, okay, go ahead.
No, you continue, please.
Oh, yeah, right. So we're talking about, and I usually just call them, you know, let's say species group A and species group B, and types 1 through 4. So in species group A, we have type 1, that's what you see in the Patterson film, and the type 4, which is very similar to that one, but they're smaller, and unlike the Patterson type Sasquatch that has, their limbs are proportionally different than humans. In other words, forearms are longer than what ours would be, and in the Sasquatch, there the lower leg is shorter and the upper leg is longer. Where, like if you look at a human, we're more evenly proportioned between those joints.
Right.
Then there's species group B, where we have the type 2 and type 3. Type 2s, and you can distinguish them if people talk about seeing teeth. And one of the anthropologists that I know, Mark Dobbs, very sharp guy, keeps me on my toes. I asked him about that after talking to a couple of witnesses who said that these things had bared their teeth at him. And he says, "Yeah, that's a classic lip flip that primates do. And in nature, if you don't want to fight another member of your species if possible, because injury can result in death in nature. So what you do is a lot of displays, and a lip flip is showing your teeth to a potential opponent. And whoever's got the bigger set of teeth or is more dominant in that situation, that's the winner, and the two part ways without any conflict." So he says, absolutely, for a Sasquatch to do a lip flip would make absolute sense. And since that time, I've got a lot of reports of people reporting these things bearing their teeth at them. So if you can see the teeth, like in the classic Sasquatch in the Patterson film, the Type 1, and Bob Gimlin even told me this one time. He said he saw the teeth very clearly. They were like human teeth, only larger, of course. No canines. The Type 2s have very prominent canines, upper and lower. So that's a real distinguishing feature between those two types. And they will go on all fours more often than the Type 1s.
Well, that's interesting.
So they'll use, so there's some subtle differences between the two types. Now, the Type 3 is what people will call the dog man. And I know there's plenty of people say, oh, they see things with tails and all these kind of weird things, but I think what they're seeing, and what I was told through my sources, is that the type 3, the dogman, what people call a dogman, is basically like the type 2, but they have a more ape-like protruding face that I think gets mistaken for a snout.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
And I think a lot of times those are just misidentifications people are making. They're calling something a werewolf or that, and they're seeing something that's actually more ape-like.
I'm in complete agreement with you, Will. And I also wondered, and I thought this to myself doing the research over the years, if maybe environment played a role in the size and width and descriptions of some of these creatures. For example, like in the piney forest in Texas and the Gulf Coast states, they're often described as more aggressive and often looking more primate-like than they are human-like in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think the environment definitely plays an effect. I mean, it does with human beings, so,
right.
You know, and other animals, so it's going to these things, too.
Yeah, because I'm often asked myself if I think there's different species or subspecies of these creatures, and to be honest, I don't know for sure. I mean, we can speculate on it and come up with very good possibilities, but I often think that maybe some of these subspecies that are out there, and I think there are, but I think that they're out there and they're different, have the different appearances, different sizes, is due to the environment, the location they're at, the food sources, the habitat they're living in.
Absolutely, and you know what got me started thinking? I didn't think anything about this until just a few years ago. You know who Bobby Short was? She was a good friend of mine.
Mine too.
And
yes.
Whenever we would chat, she would tell me about her sighting, and she would say, "Well, it was definitely human looking."
Right.
And I would never characterize what I saw as human looking. You know, I would shoot one because it looked like an animal. Mm-hmm. You know, and what she saw, and she was such a good friend, I never wanted to argue with her about it, so I always thought in the back of my mind, well, you know, there are these discrepancies in sightings around the country, where some people will say something that's completely different than what somebody else saw. And now there is some variation within a species, you know, to make room for that argument about the differences, but some of the differences were so great that I just couldn't reconcile the two, so the only possibility was there was more than one type.
Right.
And then when the first person that I called Mr. Black contacted me, he says, "No, you're exactly right." He says, and not only that, there were more. And then things like the Dogman. Actually, now they're a very location specific type. They're, you know, within 500 miles of the Mississippi River drainage system, and really not outside of that area. So definitely habitat is going to play a role in some of these different types.
I would agree with you. We're going to go ahead and open up our phone lines. If anybody would like to call in and talk with Will tonight, you can do so toll-free at 1-877-677-2858, or if you're in the local Pennsylvania area, you can do so by calling 724-824-1494. Again, I'll give out those phone numbers of toll-free 877-677-2858 or 724-824-1494. Our guest tonight, Will Jevning. We're talking about Bigfoot during Creature Features tonight. And Will, I do have to ask you this because I've seen you on America's Book of Mysteries, and I loved the episode. I thought you did a great job. And you mentioned this earlier about several informants that you talked to, known as Mr. Black, that have some kind of government involvement. How deep do you actually think this goes in our government?
I think it's pretty deep. And I based it on a number of what these different people, things they've said. And I have to be careful what I say because saying certain things would give them away. Mm-hmm. Because some of them do work for the government. But they definitely, they've known all about this. They know what's on. In fact, I've talked on shows in the past about a couple of guys who show up a lot of times. In fact, there was a police officer from the Southwest who, and this started out like a lot of these situations start out where there's one or two things that happen. For instance, you got a call one night. There was an elderly couple who had their back window, the kitchen, smashed in by one of these things. The older gentleman went out the front door, and this thing took a swipe at him and almost got him. So they called 911. Cop goes out, interviews the people. Not long after that, he starts looking into some dogs, a bunch of pit bulls that were killed. I mean, they were torn in half, things like that, about a dozen of them. And these two guys show up. One's described as clean cut, and the other one is a tall guy with a beard, outdoorsy looking type. And they tell him, and he's chief point blank, leave it alone, don't look at it, don't investigate this anymore, just drop it, forget all about it. Well, the cop, he is going to continue doing his job. He's trying to protect the public where he lives. So there was a 15-year-old boy who was riding his bicycle home one evening, and he said the area is such out we're in the part of the county where they don't put street lights everywhere along the road, only at certain points where there's danger, curves, things like that. So the kid's riding along from his friend's house this one evening, and he gets the feeling that he's being followed. So he stops under this street light, turns around and looks, and here's this massive thing behind him. And he says it's on all fours, and it's around 7 feet high in that position. And, of course, he freaks out, and he starts to take off on his bike. It reaches out, grabs the bike. The kid goes flying over the handlebars, and he gets up and just takes off running. Gets home, is just terrified, tells his parents what happened. They call 911. Deputy goes out, and they talk to the kid, and the kid was ticked off when the deputy was trying to say, well, maybe you saw something. And he says, well, no, I know darn well what I saw. So he says, take me out there and show me where this happened. They get to the location, and the bicycle, the frame is bent, and it was thrown 10 feet up a tree.
Ooh.
So, so this deputy and this police officer that was told to leave this alone, they go out to take a look at this place one evening, this very same corner, and there was a pecan orchard on one side of the road, and I think he said a cotton field on the other side. And they went out in the cruiser, and I'm sitting in my bed this evening, and I start getting this text, and he's texting me live as they're doing this stuff. And they turn the lights on the field where the cotton was, and there's 8 sets of eyes out there looking back at them. So moments later, the Alpha was less than 5 feet behind the patrol vehicle, and it roared. Scared him so bad, the deputy wet himself.
Oh my gosh!
And they're asking me what to do, and I said, get the hell out of there. I said, you two need to go to a Denny's or someplace, get calmed down, get the deputy changed, whatever you need to do to get yourselves under control here. Well, and I can't remember if this was exactly in the right sequence about this police officer, but he was called in early the next morning while he was in bed to the chief's office, and these two guys are there. And they told him, they said, well, we told you to leave this alone. Apparently they were there and had filmed everything, including audio, and they played it back for the cop and his chief of police. And they told me, they said, well, you need to do something about this man, or we're going to pull federal funding from your town. It was a small town, so he was out of work, suspended for a couple of weeks. And then there were some other things that went on. There were more sightings and things, and this cop had a run-in with these two gentlemen, and they eventually talked to one another, and he took pictures of their vehicle, including the license plate, sent me the picture, and said he ran the plate. It came back to Department of Homeland Security.
Interesting.
Very.
So we do know there's connections.
Huh. Yeah, I remember as a kid growing up studying this phenomenon and really reading the books, newspaper articles. I remember the Army Corps of Engineers, I believe it was Washington State, that had that handbook that had the picture of Sasquatch in there. And I always wondered, I was like, well, if the government is in denial that this thing exists, or they basically play dumb, then why would they put something like that in that book?
Right. And I have to say that I can't say that it's a bad thing. Maybe they're keeping it quiet. I'm sure they're doing a really tough job.
Yeah.
So I have to give them kind of a pat on the back for what they're doing. They're probably swamped with this, and because it's probably a very huge liability issue if it were to get out, especially if people were being taken.
Yeah. Well, I want to get a little more into the subject matter. We come back from break. I think we're going to jump into our break a few minutes early and get that out of the way, because I want to find out your thoughts on the possible motives as to why our government is trying to cover this up. What are the implications? Will it affect natural habitat, the logging business? There's so many possibilities, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that. Plus, I'd like to get into talking a little bit about your books and some of your personal research that you've done over the years. So we'll get into that after the break, and remind everybody that you are listening to the Para X Radio Network, IRN, the Internet Radio Network, WAHR-FM, Radio Love, Planet Paranormal, TuneIn Radio, and if it's Wednesday nights, you're hearing the rebroadcast of Beyond the Edge Radio's Creature Features on the Intrepid Paradigm Broadcast Network. Our guest tonight, William Jevning. We're talking about Bigfoot, folks, and things are just getting heated up, so make sure you keep it right where it's at. We'll be back after the break.
What strange creatures lurk in the darkness? We do. BTE Radio's Creature Features will be right back.
Ever want to hunt for ghosts in a spooky old mansion? Or explore the dark, forbidding forest searching for Bigfoot? Well, just in time for Halloween, the people who brought you Phenomenology Phenom Events is proud to announce the Ramblewood Paranormal Weekend Retreat. Join us for 4 days and 3 nights at the haunted Ramblewood Rustic Resort in Darlington, Maryland, October 8th through the 11th. This all-inclusive paranormal weekend includes ghost hunts in the very haunted Ramblewood Mansion, Paranormal Jeopardy with haunted collectors Brian Cano, haunted workshops with Bob Christopher and Dave Giuliano, a day and nighttime Bigfoot hike with Bigfoot field investigator and host of Beyond the Edge Radio, Eric Altman, and so much more. For the low price of $250 per person, your weekend includes all these activities, dorm room style lodging, all meals, snacks, and beverages, or if you choose, bring your own tent and camp right on site. Tickets are limited, so act now and get yours through PayPal.com and send your payments of $250 per person to Dana Wingard at AOL.com. Join us this Halloween season for a frightening, fun-filled time of ghosts, creatures, and things that go bump in the night at the first ever Ramblewood Paranormal Retreat, October 8th through the 11th. For more information, go to Facebook.com and enter Ramblewood Paranormal Retreat. We'll see you there this Halloween, and we'll leave the lights on for you. Or will we?
Fright Times is not for everyone. If you're not a haunted house and Halloween fan, Fright Times is not for you. If you don't want the techniques, tricks, and tips of leading designers and experts, Fright Times is not for you. And if you want to pay more than $20 a year for a great subscription, seriously, Fright Times? Otherwise, Fright Times is for you. Cover to cover, the best magazine for haunted house and Halloween fans is Fright Times. Read our back issues online for free at frighttimes.com. Fright done right.
Every week you visited the website, our Facebook page, and joined us in the chat room. You've tuned in to hear the best in alternative talk radio. We've heard your cries for more, and now you can take your BTE radio experience beyond the edge. Step out of the darkness and into the spotlight with your own BTE swag. The new BTE Radio online store is now open for business and offers a wide variety of men and women's clothing, collectible items, and cool gear, all with the BTE logo on it and all at affordable prices. The new BTE Radio online store is now your one-stop shop for all your cool BTE swag. Check out the new BTE Radio online store at cafepress.com/BTE gear, or go to the BTE website at beyondtheedgeradio.com and click on the BTE Radio online store banner on the homepage. All sales and proceeds go to keeping your favorite alternative talk radio show on the air and coming into your home each and every week. So what are you waiting for? Be one of the cool kids on the block and help support Beyond the Edge Radio by visiting the new BTE Radio online store. For high-quality, affordable BTE apparel, gear, and accessories, there's nowhere else to go but to the new BTE online radio shop right now and help get your BTE bling on.
Legend has it There was once a creature lurking among the trees at Chickies Rock on the outskirts of Columbia, Pennsylvania. The ape-like beast would travel down and steal apples from those who picnicked below. The locals dubbed this creature the Apple Snitcher, or as it came to be known, the Albert Twitch. Columbia is proud to present the 2015 Albert Twitch Festival, a unique event celebrating Columbia's favorite monster. Saturday, September 26th, 2015, featuring food, vendors, special guests, and exciting presentations on the strange and mysterious. The 2015 Albert Twitch Festival. Come out and explore the unknown.
For more information, visit albertwitchfestival.com.
Welcome back to BTE Radio's Creature Features. We've left the lights on for you.
Good evening. Welcome back to BTE Radio's Creature Features. I'm your host and producer of tonight's program. Eric Altman would be my name. My Tonto of the Paranormal, by my side through her shingles. God bless you. She's with me, standing tall and standing proud, the one and only Marie Samuel. Marie, how's the shingles treating you tonight?
I just took a pain pill.
No wonder you've been so quiet.
The last one wore off. It's starting to ache a little bit, so.
I don't envy you, dear. I really don't.
I'll be through it in a couple days.
Hopefully so. We've got a fascinating show tonight. We're discussing Bigfoot with our guest Will Jevning, and you can find out more about Will by visiting our website, beyondtheedgeradio.com. On the main page is William's very brief bio from William and his link to his webpage, jevningresearch.blogspot.com. Will, we're glad you're joining us tonight, and thank you very much for spending your Sunday evening with us.
Yeah, absolutely, anytime.
We had something very interesting happen during the break, and this is kind of funny. Maybe it's just coincidental. Maybe it's not. Maybe the government really is involved. We're talking with William about some of the government involvement, some of the things he's found out in regards to other researchers in the field, and his phone just dropped right off completely with no reason. So,
They're listening and cut us off.
Yeah, they very well could be, but. Before we went to break, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit, if we could, about the government involvement. And what do you think, in just your opinion, why would the government be so interested in the subject matter, for one, and then keeping it so quiet? Do they not think that, like with UFOs, the American population or the population in general could handle the fact that Bigfoot was really out there?
I think they could handle it, but I think there's some bigger problems with it. When you look back historically, not just at Native American history here, and we'll talk about that in a second too, but you go back in the even older histories around the world dealing with these creatures. Certain things around the world, like ogres and trolls, for instance, are these creatures. So when you look at things. Cultures that have dealt with these things, and most of these, I think, are just the stories, are echoes of things that went on long before any kind of recorded or even remembered history, where these things were managers. One of the things I was told was, about Danny Vendramini's book, Them and Us.
Did we just lose him again for real? Oh.
Thought we lost you again.
Oh, no, I'm here.
Okay,
didn't come through?
You were talking, and all of a sudden you dropped off again. So the government is at play.
Oh. So, Danny Vendramini's book, Them and Us, are you familiar with that?
Yes. Yep.
his NT theory, Neanderthal predation theory, is interesting, but I find some big holes in it. I don't think Neanderthals were, eating humans.
No.
I think there's another possibility. And when you look back into some of the histories, and especially the most recent one, which is Native American history, many Native cultures here in the country talk about these things being cannibals, which doesn't mean them eating each other. It means they were eating humans. And there's a lot to that. And people get confused because there's some groups will claim, oh, they're a big brother, they're this or that. And I had an elder sort of clarify that whole thing for me. It really depends on a tribe or a group's experience with these things. Some of those, the touchy-feely view could be some group that's very far removed from reality with dealing with these things, but you talk to a group that's had some very close contact, and it could be, right down to an individual's experience, what their view is, as a group. So you have to really look at what's behind that, but when you get to the real core of what's going on, these things they were eating people, and I've had a few Native friends over the years tell me that when their people came to the areas they come to settle, Carmel Falls, for instance, is one of those in southern Oregon. They said that these things were already here when their people came to the region, and they drove them out of the hunting areas to where the high areas where they live currently. And so, when you look back at these histories, there was a lot of friction between humans and these creatures.
Right.
And it could even boil down to today why we're afraid of the dark and why monsters fight.
Right. Well, even here in the Northeast and Pennsylvania and up western New York and those areas, the Iroquois Seneca Nation were very terrified of these creatures. They called them the Genesquaw.
Absolutely.
And they were afraid they were cannibalistic-like creatures. They were terrified of them because they would eat the tribes.
And there's a lot behind that. So if you were to play that forward, if that's what we're going on, and there's a lot of people that come up missing in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know David Pilates, has his books out, but he doesn't really ever say that it's the Sasquatch doing it. And, I won't even go into that whole thing. But when you look at the numbers, there probably are a large portion of missing people being taken by these things. And if the government, I'm sure the government's well aware of that. And that's why it's got to be very difficult for them to get a handle on that and to keep it quiet, because you can imagine
I think we lost
there?
Yeah, there you are. We
there you
dropped out of the scan. They're watching us. They're sitting outside my house in a big black van.
But you'd have to admit they'd be in a real tough spot, the government, if they were on top of that and knowing with that knowledge, trying to keep a handle on it. It would be a real tough spot to be in. So
sure,
I'm giving them a big pat on the back if they're handling that.
They have to be doing something, because you're not the first person I've talked to that has had experiences similar to what the covering of tracks and even talking about some of the people disappearing and whatnot, and of course the logging industry. I've always thought that look what happened with the spotted owl. They've lost billions of dollars.
What I think happened with that? Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
What I think happened with the whole spotted owl thing, I think that was something that was maybe a test bed to see what would happen to communities financially if something like this were to come out. But what logging actually did, and you look at what happens to areas after they're logged, it doesn't really destroy habitat like we were led to believe. It actually creates a lot of habitat and a lot of food.
It does.
In Washington State, for instance, you go to read about deer in Washington. They call it an infestation because there's so many of them. And logging created that, because when a canopy, you have an old growth canopy, it prevents sunlight from going to the ground, so a lot of plants don't grow. There's not a lot of underbrush. When that sunblock is gone, all the grasses and leafy plants, all that area explodes with that kind of stuff. So that the whole food chain it's huge. I mean, there's a ton of wildlife in these places now. So everything isn't always as they tell you it is.
Good point. That's true, yeah. It happened in Pennsylvania when they did a lot of logging here and the new growth came in, the deer population skyrocketed.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's a good point. It's fascinating to think, that they do have some kind of involvement in just exactly what it is. I've had some weird experiences that I can't say were government related, but just kind of bizarre things where we've been out doing research in a very remote area where nobody knows where we're going, what time we're going to be there, how long we're going to be there. Then all of a sudden, you'll see like a DNR officer show up. Well,
right.
Okay. and they know what we're doing even before we tell them what we're doing. I had one come up to me and put his window down and says, "So how's the Bigfoot research going tonight?" And I kind of looked at him like, what?
Back in, I'm trying to think what year it was, 87 or 88. I think it was before I had my second sighting. When I started working at Southern Community County area in Washington, there were a few of us up. It was either the first or second time we found tracks in the snow. And we were up there following the line of tracks in the snow, and I heard this noise at my vehicle, and it sounded just like somebody with a crowbar trying to pry the door open. So me and a couple of the guys went running down there to catch whoever was doing it red-handed. And here's this pickup, a guy sitting behind the wheel, and there was an unmarked pickup that I could see, and a guy in regular clothes by the door of my car. And I hadn't been out of the military very long, so my language was still pretty colorful. And I just started blistering the guy up one side and down the other. And in the middle of this tirade, I needed to say where he kind of stood there and was red-faced. I glanced over and I see the guy behind the wheel of the truck, and he's wearing a uniform and got a badge. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm already into this. He's getting it too. So I finished with this guy, and I proceeded to walk over to the guy, and I started blistering him. And he apologized profusely, and he said they were game officials up there, and he knew who I was. And I thought, how does this guy know who I am? I mean, they probably ran the plates on my vehicle, but he says, well, if you're up here Bigfoot hunting again, let me know, and we'll watch your car for you. And I thought, well, he might have known who I was, but how do you know I was up there doing that? Because there hadn't been any articles or anything out about me at that time. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating indeed. Makes you wonder, that's for sure. A couple of chat room questions I wanted to throw at you, if I may, from our listeners. Godzilla in our chat room wants to know, have you done any research in Pennsylvania? And if so, what parts and what have you found?
I haven't personally, but I have a team there. And I don't know, they haven't seen anything recently, but one of the team leader there actually has seen one. I'm trying to remember where he's at. I'm not really that familiar with Pennsylvania. I want to say it's western Pennsylvania where he has had his stuff where he's found. But he actually had one, close to his vehicle and did some things. Not a lot right there yet, but he's, like you said, it's quiet there right now. But he had his sighting, and they're out looking. I don't know what he's done recently, though.
I'm in western Pennsylvania myself, and there's been a lot of, that seems to be the most active area, southeastern Ohio, eastern Ohio, and western Pennsylvania. It has been for decades, and the last couple of years it's been pretty quiet here in western Pennsylvania. So, yeah, I'm right there with you.
I think one of the problems too is if you don't really understand their ranges, it's hard to figure. You have to really get their pattern down, and I did that with south of Mount St. Helens with the range there, and it took me 12 years to figure out their rotational pattern throughout the range, and each range is different. So,
right. One other question Godzilla had for you: have you had the opportunity to capture any vocal recordings? And if you have you had them analyzed by a lab or a specialist?
Not lately, no. I do have people who can analyze them, but I don't have any current ones.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to get some distant calls recorded, but they're so distant that you can't make out very much on the digital recorder. And I've even used parabolic mics. I was curious to ask you this, and I'll turn it over to Marie after I ask you this question. Have you had any encounters or are aware of any people who've had encounters where they've heard a Bigfoot responding to calls that almost sound identical to the call that you're putting out there? Like, in other words, mimicking.
People? Usually they won't respond to people, because they can tell the difference. Now, they will vocal between each other. Here's the thing with people and these things. These things, and we kind of touched on it with the friction between humans and these things in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's the main reason they're so hard to find, because if you go back in the past, humans are pack hunters. And the example I always use with people is when a dog bites somebody, and this is almost universal. Now, what happens to the dog? It's put down immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Humans are very particular about anything harming us. We take very severe measures. So I think we've always been that way, and maybe because of the friction between us and these creatures in the remote past. So they keep, it's not that they're afraid of us necessarily, but they keep a wide berth from us. So when people are out banging on trees or screaming or anything like that, if they hear something, it's not a response to the human. It could be just one in their area, unless it's a sentry. But the other parts of the group aren't that far away. They're within earshot.
Well, that makes sense.
I don't know if that answers the question,
yeah.
But you're not going to communicate directly with them. That just isn't going to happen.
Gotcha.
Back to your information that you get from your Mr. Blacks. You had mentioned that one of them had said that there was an autopsy performed on a Bigfoot?
At least a couple of them, yeah.
And did you get any details on the autopsy, as far as their anatomy? On the, are they like?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, just please answer the question.
Okay. Well, a little bit. He's trying to get this person to actually talk directly with me, so I'm still waiting to hear on that. Although the only particular we did discuss was them having what appeared to be a second set of vocal cords.
That's interesting.
Now, I don't know if they were actual vocal cords or some structure that appeared to be that way, but I talked about it with the anthropologist I mentioned, Mark Dobbs, and he said it's not out of the question that a primate would have something like that. And we know so little about infrasound, it could be used, in something like that as well. It's not out of the question. They just don't know anything about it yet.
Are there any other known primates that have second vocal cords?
Oh, boy. I think he mentioned there was, but I can't remember offhand. It was one of those, I get bombarded with so much information, it's kind of hard to remember. I mean, unless it's something that's really pertinent to what I'm doing right now.
Right.
Right now I'm working on a book that's called Sasquatch Sign and Predatory Behavior. So I'm kind of focusing on those areas right now.
Okay.
Well, since we have a few minutes left in the program, let's talk a little bit about your books. You've written 3 books, and your most recent, it's basically a how-to guide for Bigfoot researchers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Notes in the Field is sort of a basic one. That was my first one. And, when you write, you want to start someplace, so I started there. It's just sort of a basic one. Haunted Valley was an afterthought. It's a small book. That was about our 1989-1990 investigation of the incidents around Yakult, Washington. And in Search of the Unknown, people ask me so often how I got started, so I chronicled the first 8 years of my work in that book. So, and actually, the new book is sort of in the same response. People ask me so often what to look for. I thought, well, I have some really a lot of first-rate photographs of evidence. And so the new book, Sasquatch Sign and Predatory Behavior, is going to address that. And the predatory behavior needs to be with that because The people just out bumbling around looking for Sasquatch sign. If they find something, they need to know a little bit about what the creatures may be doing in that area. So it's not just, you don't want to just go out and look for bear without understanding what a bear does. So predatory behavior in Sasquatch is probably 99% of their activity is surrounded in food gathering. And most of that is hunting and predatory behavior. So, and I'm using a lot of examples, known stories, unknown stories, that really demonstrate the various types of predatory behaviors and might shed a little light for people on what's going on. When they hear a story, they can say, oh, this is what this creature was doing, or these creatures.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, and there's so many new, you know this as well as I do, there's so many new faces and new people that are interested in the subject matter because of the TV shows and Facebook and all the social media sites that are coming out there. And there's so many out there that don't know what Bigfoot sign truly is, and they're taking pictures of anything and everything, and look, a Bigfoot did this. Like the story out of Pittsburgh, I'm sure you heard about it. This guy named Doc Squatch found this area with a whole lot of poop in it, as he says, and it's an area where they go and they poop. So he goes out and videotapes and hopes he catches a Bigfoot there. And I have to laugh. I'm like, well, buddy, don't you know other animals go to the bathroom in the woods too? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And that's just it. Like I said, I've got, there's, of course, tracks. I've got some really, really first-rate tracks that were, from Canada and other areas I'm putting in there. And then there's hand markings, scat, of course, the rock stacks and piles, things like that. And structures are something that I'm still kind of on the fence about. When I first put out stuff about the snap trees, and that was something Bob Titmus talked to me about many, many years ago. He had a whole bunch of this stuff in his house. And he says, well, I don't know why they just might walk on and do this. Well, I think he'd wet himself if he'd seen what I found in the early 90s, with these fir trees that were, 3+ inches thick, snap 90 degrees, 8 feet off the ground up in the middle of nowhere. So some of that's in there, but also with the structure thing, picking any kind of structures, they're very rudimentary things. And I was, like I said, let me backtrack a bit. When I first put the stuff out about the broken trees, I was real hesitant about putting that out because I knew everybody in the world was going to come out with something like this, and probably 95% of them were going to be nothing but weather breaks. Because unless you really understand the forest and how weather affects it and disease and things like that affect vegetation, you have to be very particular about what you claim is done by a Sasquatch. And the same with these structures. I mean, there's lots of weathering. There's people who do jokes. I'm one of those people who do jokes. We used to go out camping and leave, the Blair Witch structures hanging from our camp spots, just to see just to screw with people.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of times when things are found, that's these really ornate things, that's what's going on. I think people are pulling pranks. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of these people will announce to everybody on Facebook they're going out to this area, so there's jokesters out there doing all kinds of things. But I had some pictures sent to me from Alberta recently from a Native American gentleman up there on Indian land, and he was way out in the middle of nowhere and found this. And it's a very simple looking, it's maybe 3 or 4 trees that are kind of put together. And what I'm thinking that they're using these for navigational waypoints, and nothing really more than that. Right. They're probably like we are as they move through the ranges. They mark their own areas.
That's what I think,
too.
And
it's sometimes territorial marking, sometimes it's for themselves as navigational waypoints. Pretty, the same as what we would do in blazing a tree.
Right.
A trail.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is fascinating, indeed, and there's so much more we could get into tonight and talk about, but unfortunately we're out of time. So we've got to wish you a fond evening, and thank you for joining us, Will. Give out your website again for folks that want to follow along with you.
Sure, it's just jevningresearch.blogspot.com. I just use my blog to put information out, and some stories and interesting things like that.
Excellent, and you'll have to come back on the show with us. We got to have you back, Will. We love talking with you, and there's so much more we can talk about.
Oh, anytime.
We appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you again for joining us tonight on Creature Features. It's been a blast talking with you. Unfortunately, these 90 minutes go by so fast, and we barely touched the surface tonight. So, wow. There's always so much to talk about when it comes to Bigfoot.
I appreciate it.
Well, it's been our pleasure, and again, we hope you'll come back on and talk with more Bigfoot with us on a future show.
Absolutely.
Have a wonderful night, my friend, and good to finally talk with you.
Good talking to you, too. I appreciate it.
Have a great night. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Bye now.
Good night, Will.
William Jevning joining us here on the program tonight as we talk Bigfoot on Creature Features. Marie, what a fascinating show tonight. Will really knows
my God,
his
Eric, I was hanging on to every word that man was saying.
He knows his stuff after 43 years of doing it, yeah, and working with some of the biggest names in the field of research. And I've got to pick his brain because I've been doing this 35 years, studying it, and 20 years in the field, and man, there's stuff I don't know. So I'll be bugging Will a lot more, I'm sure. But we do have to make way for the next show coming up here on the Para X Radio Network, and we got to say goodnight to everybody. But before we do, I want to remind everybody that next week on the program we've got Mountain Gypsies joining us, Kat Young and Tess Hughes. They'll be on to talk about their work in Reiki healing and medicinal healing. Energy work that they do, house cleansings, blessings, all that exciting things. And we'll have a rootin' tootin' good time next week, Marie.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
That's for sure. Folks, we want to thank you for tuning in tonight to BTE Radio's Creature Features. It's been fun and a very fascinating night with our guest, William Jevning. And check him out on Facebook. Check out his website. It'll be up on our page for the next day or so. You can check out all that cool information on his blog. Thanks again to everybody for listening. Marie, it's been exciting as always, and thank you for being a trooper tonight dealing with what you're dealing with.
I wouldn't miss the show for
the
just
shingles.
about anything.
For the shingles.
For the shingles, for sure.
All right, well, we're going to head on out the door and call it a night, and you guys have a great one, and we'll see you again next Sunday night, 8 p.m. start time. Until then, Marie, you have a great night yourself.
Back at you, buddy.
Replay of tonight's show can be heard on Wednesday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the IPBN-FM, the Intrepid Paradigm Broadcast Network. Archives of tonight's show and all BTE radio programs can be heard on the following networks: iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Podomatic, Podbean, Parapods, TuneIn Radio, Blueberry Podcasting, Planet Paranormal, the IPBN, and Para-X radio networks. Music used during tonight's show was done with the express written permission and performed by the following artists: Midnight Syndicate at midnightsyndicate.com, The Kill Creeps at LyleBlackburn.com, The Moon Rays at themoon-rays.com, Shane Spiel and the Snake Oil Band at shanespiel.com, The Iacolites at theiacolites.bandcamp.com. For questions, feedback, or to contact us, email us at beyondtheedgeradio@gmail.com or visit our website at beyondtheedgeradio.com. BTE Radio's Creature Features is a Beyond the Edge entertainment production heard only on Beyond the Edge Radio.